Hello and welcome to the Living to Thrive with Cancer podcast. I am Catherine White, a stage 4 colon cancer thriver, and I'm here with you today to talk about the impact of cancer. Now, before we begin, I wanted to share with you that I am offering a new free workshop for women living with cancer. This class is focused on how to move through my 5-step process to move from survivor to thriver. And I created this process because I started thinking about what I didn't know when I was living with my cancer diagnosis, and maybe you're in the same place. Knowing you want more for yourself and knowing that you've heard this term thriver, but not really sure what that means. So I sat with this and I knew I needed to put on paper some strategies for you that would help you to get out of fight or flight mode and into thriving mode. So I have created these benchmarks that you can move through, and I want to share them with you in this masterclass. It is available for registration right now. It's happening on Thursday, April the 11th at 12 p.m. Eastern, and I'll put the links in the show notes so that you can sign up today. You can also find the link at the top of my website, www.catherinewhite.coach, which will also be available in the show notes. Come and give it a listen. You never know what you're going to learn. There is always something to take away, and there will be a replay for people who aren't able to make it to the class live because I know that sometimes life gets in the way. All right. In today's episode, I am focusing on the fact that March is Colon Cancer Awareness Month, and as a stage 4 colon cancer thriver, I have made it my mission to share my story and to educate others about life with cancer. I hope you will come to understand more about colon cancer, more about life with cancer, and why now is the time to take control of your health and to be proactive. If you are living with colon cancer, I would love to hear from you, and maybe we can have a conversation about how I can help to support you. Talking about colons isn't sexy or glamorous, but it is necessary. This is not an old person's disease anymore. Colon cancer patients are getting younger and younger all of the time. So now is the time to start getting educated and to learn the underlying lifestyle choices that can make a difference between health and disease. And specifically in this episode, I'm talking more about the impact that cancer has on a person's life. And I'm going to tell you some things about myself that you may relate to. So we're going to look at the emotional and mental impact of cancer. And if you're a new listener or a new viewer on YouTube, I want to welcome you to the podcast. You've landed here for a reason that you may not know yet, but I am confident that you will figure it out. And if you find what you've learned here today to be helpful, please share this with other people. Sharing helps me to reach more people like you who are looking for support in navigating life with cancer so that they can go from survivor to thriver. And if you want to go ahead and give me a follow on Instagram, I would love to have you as part of my community. You can find me at Catherine White Wellness. Give me a follow, take a screenshot, and send it to me in a DM, and I'll send you a free copy of my guide to managing cancer in everyday life. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can give me a follow and a like below. All right, we have lots to cover, so let's get started. Today, I'm talking about the emotional and mental impact of cancer and the impact that it's had on my life. And I think that this will resonate with many of you, and it may even sound a little bit familiar. We cannot take the emotional and mental impact that cancer has on a person's life lightly. It is physically life-changing, which is the part that everyone sees, but it also changes you as a person. And this is the part where I think the system fails us a little bit. It fails us in supporting not just the emotional process during cancer, but the pieces we're left to pick up, often alone, after the medical process is finished with us, and when we get quiet, and when we think no one is watching. It's the triggers. It's the triggers of smells and sounds and spaces. It's the fear of the pain in your side or the ache in your back or the headache, the fear that it's cancer, that cancer is back. It's the trauma that lands in your house and in your family when you tell them that you have cancer. It's being told to go back to living your life when you have no idea who you even are anymore. These are all parts of living with cancer and the impact that it has on a person's life. Now, forgive the language, but that's the shit that messes with your mind and your heart, the shit you need to talk about so you can start to heal your soul. And I want to share with you some of my moments that were particularly painful and how I'm still learning how to navigate triggers and traumas. It's getting easier, but I know that I still have my moments, and I'm just sharing that with you because even though I am a cancer coach, I'm still a human. I'm still a human who is living with a cancer diagnosis, and some days I still have my own moments, much like I'm sure you have yours. So I think this is a good time to pause and tell you how I feel about the word journey. It's a very commonly used word when it comes to cancer, but I need to say that it kind of makes me cringe a little bit, and it makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up, and it makes me a little uncomfortable. And so when I was thinking about this word, I started looking around, and I found Kelsey Crowe, who's a doctor of social welfare and the author of the book, There Is No Good Card for This, A Guide to How to Respond Compassionately to Bad News. And she said, and I love this so much, she said, referring to cancer as a journey implies that it's a stress-free process that unfolds in a Zen way, but what cancer patients actually experience is fear and sheer exhaustion. And that just summarized it so completely for me. And that's why I wanted to include it in here, that is part of the whole process, is navigating the language around it and navigating the emotions around it. So this quote, that it's not a journey, that it's not a Zen process, is an absolute truth in my opinion. In my mind, a journey is me and my husband and some backpacks and this grand adventure that we're on that has a destination. And cancer has many destinations, most of which are unknown because typically you haven't had cancer before and you can't know what you don't know. And we all know that there is one destination that strikes fear in everybody's heart, the one place that we don't want to be. And so that's why I prefer to say that I'm walking with cancer, because here's the truth. I am living with cancer every day of my life. Even when I am not in a crisis, when there is not a medical situation going on, I am living with cancer. My husband and I refer to it as the club you never want to be in, the one that you don't get permission to join, the one you can never leave, that has a lifetime membership that never expires, even in the good times. And I wouldn't say that this membership, this club, this living with cancer is my identity per se, but I would say that it's part of who I am now. And that's just the reality. But it also has empowered me in ways. And so I want to share some of those ways with you. So how has a cancer diagnosis empowered me? I have developed a closeness with my husband that transcends a marriage. We have shared something so intense and frightening that we cannot help but know what each other is thinking when things come up. I have a beautiful relationship with my sons. They are the joys of my life, and they have developed a sense of compassion beyond their years because of this experience. I was able to retire from the job that was making me sick. I was stressed out all of the time, and I know that not everybody can do that, and I'm fortunate. I'm fortunate to have a husband who had a job that allowed me to do that, but I can tell you, I am way happier now. And I know how strong I really am. And I am healthier. Ironically, I am healthier than I have ever been. And this cancer diagnosis, as I said, I changed jobs. I quit my job. I couldn't do that job anymore. And I tried to figure out who I was. And what landed for me was the ability for me to take action to become a holistic cancer coach so that I could support other women who are living with cancer. So let's talk for a second here about the impact of cancer. Well, not just for a second. Let's talk for a few minutes here about the impact of cancer, because it's actually a really, really big topic, and I'm just going to shorten it down into a nutshell. Our life at my house, much like yours, became a series of tests and surgeries and chemotherapy and follow-ups and more tests after the diagnosis. And I remember one appointment in particular with my liver surgeon. And I have to tell you, he is the best. He is literally one of the best liver surgeons in the world. He's world renowned. Is working on state-of-the-art procedures related to transplants and resections. And I could not have been in better hands, and I would not trade him for anyone. And I also know that he had a responsibility to tell me the truth and be forthright with us about what this process could do and be for us. In the consultation with my liver surgeon, when we were talking about the liver resection, he told us that he was going to take me as close to the edge as he could because I was young and healthy. And we were like, what does that mean? And so basically what he said is he was going to take me as deep into the surgery as he could, knowing that that could risk my life, and knowing also that it could throw me into liver failure with the remaining part of my liver, which ultimately could result in me dying. And we were shocked. We were shocked. We shouldn't have been. Surgery is a risk, but our oncologist and our colon surgeon had never spoken to us in such a blunt way. So it was a long drive home. And on the ride home, we weren't talking. We didn't, I think we were both just dumbstruck. We didn't know what to say. And we ended up pulling over onto a side road, and we just kind of looked at each other and started to cry, because it was such a harsh reality, and one that we hadn't verbalized a whole lot, because as I've shared before, like, we dove into positivity and the belief that I could do this. So we really, really had to wrap our brain around the idea that someone had just told us that I could possibly die from this surgery. So we picked ourselves up and we went home and we continued to move forward, and the surgery was successful and all of that. But that story, even now, I struggle with telling it because of how raw that emotion was then and still is a little bit now. And of course, part of the cancer process is tests and procedures. So CT scans and colonoscopies are part of my screening and maintenance process. I have a CT scan every 6 months to watch for recurrences in my colon and my liver and my lungs. I was really hoping that I was going to be released to the 1-year plan, but the lung metastases that they found last summer in my left lung has put me back into the 6-month plan. And I'm just going to say that I'm really grateful for that, because I know they're watching me, they are keeping an eye on my health, and there is a lot of comfort that actually comes from that, as I'm sure you know. So the colonoscopies, thankfully, have been moved to every 3 years because I trust that my body is healthy and that it is fine. And the other tests are keeping an eye on those pieces as well. Blood work is less frequent, a couple times a year, and this is a huge part for me. Thankfully, even pre-COVID, we were able to have the conversation with our oncologist and say, you know what? Unless there's something you really, really need to see me for, I don't want to come to the cancer clinic. I would rather do this on a phone call. And he was really respectful of that. Now, I know a lot of people now go through their follow-ups on phone calls since COVID, but even pre-COVID, intuitively, we knew that was something that we didn't need to do. We didn't need to go into the cancer clinic unless we needed to go into the cancer clinic. So let's talk about that for a second. Walking into a hospital is a very stressful experience for me and for my husband. And I believe that it might be for you as well. It is a real trigger for us to have to go into the hospital. And in fact, it would start triggering us days before we even had to go in. We would start doing this weird dance around each other. I would get really quiet and sullen. My husband would get really attentive and, are you okay? And what's going on? And what do you need? And I didn't want any part of that. And we didn't really understand what that was until a few years into this whole process. And after I had started doing coaching, when we realized, oh, this is scanxiety. This is the emotional roller coaster of an upcoming test and the weeks and days leading up to it that incites fear and panic in your brain. We didn't understand what it was until we really understood what it was. And then once we were able to put a label on it, this is scanxiety, Now we know what we can do. We started bringing in tools and strategies that helped us to recognize how we were feeling. We started talking to each other about how we were feeling, and it made the days and weeks going up to the scan much, much easier. Now, previous to that, scan day was incredibly stressful because we were going to a hospital. We had to walk through the hospital with all of the smells and all of the sounds, and we typically would do that in silence. And then after it was done, we would leave in silence and we would just kind of go about our day, almost pretending like nothing had happened. But the wait for the phone call with the results weighed heavily on us. And we still wait with a little bit of that anxiety of, I believe that nothing has gone wrong in my body, and nothing has gone wrong until they tell me that something has gone wrong. But there's those lingering doubts that can creep in that are really important to learn how to recognize. So in those days leading up to the call, we can see that in each other. We can sense that. But maybe you can understand and empathize with this. It's like every little twinge, every little ache, every little thing happening in the body is like, maybe it's cancer, maybe it's back. And waiting for that phone call becomes truly agony. So I have worked really hard to get myself out of going into that tailspin, out of creating that narrative that something has gone wrong. And I just keep telling myself in the days leading up to the call that I am healthy and that nothing has gone wrong here and it's going to be a positive call. And I also know that if it's not, I can brace myself for that and I can accept it, and we have a plan and a strategy to move forward. But that's the kind of stuff that is in the head. That's the kind of stuff that is in the brain, right? That piece of always wondering and worrying. So I talked about smells and sounds. When we have had to go into the hospital in the past, and I am much better at it now because I've really been working on it. My husband still struggles with it a bit. The smells and the sounds are such a trigger. Like my husband would walk into a hospital and just the smell of it, or just the smell of hand sanitizer or wipes, would literally cause him to break out in a cold sweat. And that machine that pings, when your drip is done, your bag is done, is really a noise that I can see my husband respond to it physically, that it really puts him in a difficult place. And I think that this is an important moment, like to acknowledge that it's not just the patient who has these triggers and these emotional responses, it's the caregivers and the family also. This is not just my story, it's their story also, and they live that. And perhaps your people are living with that fallout, those triggers also. So recognizing them and being able to bring in tools and strategies to move through them and to navigate them is really important. And that's just the medical stuff. So let's talk about life after all of the stuff. I spent almost a year walking around after I rang the end of chemo bell trying to figure out who I was. I wasn't really angry and I was deeply grateful, but I knew that I was lost. I didn't have that identity of being a teacher anymore. I wasn't working. My body was still really tired. I was trying to understand what I could do to support myself. I was, exploring nutrition, but not really sure because I had developed food anxiety. I wavered between these moments of, I don't care, I can do whatever I want, it doesn't matter anyway, and I need to be really aware of what I'm eating and careful of what I put in my body so that I can stay healthy. And I really struggled with this, and I still have moments now where I struggle with it, but it has gotten better. But people would say things to me like, well, you just have to live and enjoy your life, or, well, everything in moderation. And what I would feel when they would say that was, you just don't understand. You just don't understand that food is fearful for me at this place in my life. I had colon cancer. I'm afraid of what I put in my body. I'm afraid it's going to make me sick. It's not about being on a diet. It's not about even trying to just gain weight again and get strong again. It's about, how do I nourish myself without being stressed about food? And this is my life work. This is the work that I am still doing to support my body. The brain. We are all familiar with what happens in our brains when they tell us we have cancer, when we go into fight or flight and into panic mode, but I'm talking about the struggles post-chemotherapy, post-surgery. For myself, I struggle with short-term memory issues. Um, when when I voice this response that I'm having troubles remembering things, people say, "Oh, well, you're just getting older." Well, I was 43 when my brain decided to do its own thing. My brain had a plan of its own that was obviously because of chemotherapy and surgeries. I'm 52 years old now. I am not old. But chemo brain and the years, the months and the years after chemo, the impact on the brain is significant. And it's a real challenge. Chemo brain is a real thing. And people don't necessarily believe that. And to try to explain it to anyone, sometimes it's just not even worth it. But I have had over 20 hours of anesthesia between surgeries and procedures. I've had chemo pumped into my body every 2 weeks for 12 rounds of chemotherapy, and I know some of you have had even more than that. I left each of my treatments with a bottle attached to my chest and hanging off of my belt. I walked around with that for 36 hours until a nurse came to take it off. They sent me home with a hazmat kit in case the bottle fell and broke. How messed up is that? That is just, in my mind, when I say that out loud, it's crazy that I walked around with this cytotoxin on my body that was helping me to get better. And I had to even learn how to give myself needles to keep my white blood cell count up so I could go back for another round of treatment. Crazy, right? When I first finished treatment, this comes back to what happened in my brain. I lost basic vocabulary. I would be in the middle of a sentence and I couldn't find a word. And I don't mean like big fancy academic words. I mean words like garbage can and chair. They would be completely gone. I would have these giant pauses in conversations while I was searching for this word, searching for this something to drop into my brain. It's like I could see it and I could hear it and I could feel myself saying it, but I couldn't get the word to come out of my mouth. And I still, 8 years later, have issues with this. It's gotten much better, but I still have some issues with it. But I've learned coping strategies. I've learned how to manage these, thought blips that I have. And one of them is that I tell people, please don't ever start a sentence with me with the line, "Remember when?" No, I don't. I do not remember a lot of things. And if it is a short-term piece, I definitely don't remember it. So give me cues, give me some words, talk around it. Let me find it, I tell them. Let me find it. I know it's there, but I just need you to help me to get to it. And eventually, typically, it comes back and I'm able to continue the conversation. But man, sometimes I feel really dumb, like really, really dumb. And it has been hard on my self-esteem, having been a person who really, values learning and academia and being a teacher and loving language, to lose that piece and to lose that short-term memory. But it's better than it was, and I give myself a whole lot of grace around that. So I talked about the medical triggers, and now I'm talking about the life triggers. So I want to share another little piece of my story with you. And it revolves around songs. It revolves around music. There are certain songs that were on my cancer playlist. I had a playlist that I called in all the people, give me all the positive songs that you can, and I'm going to listen to that while I do my chemotherapy. But there are certain songs from that playlist that still will drop me to my knees as I move through the emotions from remembering that song on my playlist to how it still feels in my body now. When I did my yoga teacher training almost 4 years after my original diagnosis, I learned that I had a lung tumor. I had a tumor in my right lung in 2018, had it taken out in 2019. And they used some really beautiful, inspiring songs in my yoga teacher training that were really around the context of self-discovery and really guided us in going inside and learning more about ourselves. And as we were practicing yoga to become teachers, they would put on these playlists, But some of the songs were songs that were on my chemo playlist. And I remember being so beside myself some points, just with tears running down my face, and literally like putting myself down on my mat into child's pose and catching my breath and sobbing and sobbing and sobbing because this song triggered so much in me. The fear around the upcoming surgery, but also the memories of the chemotherapy. But I need to say that I think that this was part of the healing, this allowing my body to feel the emotion and to move through it, and that yoga teacher training was probably part of the biggest part of my healing. I would say it is the biggest part of my healing story because I was able to be with my emotions. I was able to process what I was feeling. I was able to share what I was feeling with other people. And I didn't feel like people were looking at me and feeling sorry for me. They were seeing me for who I was in that moment. And that was a really valuable piece. I didn't want pity. I wanted to be seen and I wanted to be heard. And that was the space where I could do it. And I learned so many holistic tools in that yoga process, that yoga teacher training, that I now use to support myself and my clients. Now, here's another thing that maybe will resonate with you. It lumps in the category with books, but I'm going to speak specifically about movies. Movies can be another trigger. And I don't know if any of you listening to this have ever noticed this or felt this, but I feel like every movie and book that has a tragic human story in it seems to become about cancer. Somebody always ends up having cancer. And my husband and I will be watching a movie that is seemingly harmless and really enjoying it. And then all of a sudden, like, bam, somebody's got cancer. And it's like, really? Really? Now, I'm sure that we are particularly sensitive to this, but honestly, like, I can feel the weight settle in the room. I can feel the sadness creep in to each of us. And then the exchange of the glances, like, are you okay? Are you okay? Should we keep watching the movie? Should we stop the movie? And it really is frustrating to try to move forward in life and be in this place of peace and to be in a moment of just relaxing and enjoying. And then just to have that memory of cancer dropped in my lap, in our lap. And if you listen to episode 3.8, when I interviewed my husband as my caregiver, you'll know that he's very protective of me. And so not only is he trying to protect my emotions in that moment, but he's also struggling to move through his emotions in that moment because he doesn't want me to have any pain. He wants it all to go away. And so, I'm of this opinion, like maybe every movie and every book should have like a spoiler alert on it about like someone in this story has cancer. I don't know. Maybe that's just us, but I feel like it just is one of those pieces that nobody even tells you about. By the way, these are the kinds of things that are going to come up in your life and you may find them difficult. Crazy, right? Now, maybe some of you are wondering, did you ever go for help, Catherine? Listen, I've tried. Initially, I went to a counselor who dealt specifically with cancer patients. She was very kind, but her office was in the cancer clinic. And going to a space to get my head screwed on right when I had to walk through and back into that trauma was really counterproductive. So I stopped going and I tried other counselors, but really they just wanted me to talk about my childhood and my pain and not anything related to cancer. And so I just stopped going. I didn't want to talk about the stuff that came before. I wanted to talk about the stuff that happened in cancer, the sadness that I felt, the fear, the overwhelm, what it did to my family. And truthfully, I wish that there had been cancer coaches when I was going through the process, but coaching wasn't really a thing back then as much as it is now, because I could certainly have used a me when I was going through this. I have since hired a couple of amazing life coaches who have helped me to unpack my life and my emotions and help me to learn how to move forward, which is all a part of my healing process and which is what I'm hoping that you will get from this. So in spite of all of this, I need to share with you that I truly have never been happier. I am blessed to be on this side of cancer. I am blessed to have had so much support. I am blessed to have still have amazing doctors in my life and the support of my husband and my sons. And I really try to live my life to the fullest every day. I find gratitude every day. I take care of my body every day. I am truly grateful to be here and be with you right now. I have done things. So this is one piece of cancer that I find really fun, let's call it, is that it has taught me that I can do things that I would never have done before. It's given me permission to live my life out loud. So I've done things like go skinny dipping in a lake and not worry about whether people see me or not. I learned how to ride a motorcycle. I bought a motorcycle. I have since sold it because I felt like it was maybe a little bit too dangerous, but I tried it. At least I tried it. I've jumped off of rocks like 10 feet above a lake into water that would never have done before because that was scary. I have danced on the stage at my high school reunion, which I'm a wallflower. I was the wallflower. I would never have done that before. But cancer has given me permission to live my life out loud. It has given me permission to embrace my story, to embrace my pain, harness it as a message to others that prevention matters, that getting help matters, that you can live your life with cancer in a way that serves you, that you are not your diagnosis, that support is available, and that there are tools and strategies that you can use. And start with self-belief, believing that you can do this. Cancer is difficult. We all acknowledge that. Cancer does a lot of things in your life, but I just want to offer that maybe you can find something that cancer has given you that is a blessing, something that cancer has brought into your life that has changed you in a good way, that has allowed you to walk away from toxic relationships, that instead to find friendships and relationships that fill your heart and your soul. I know that I have. To stop fearing the future. That future piece is so hard when you're told you have cancer. Future pacing is hard. I don't know what tomorrow's going to look like, let alone next week, let alone 3 months. But you can live your life in the moment. You can live your life in the present and be grateful and joyful for what you have right now. And that's what I talk about with my clients, like being present right now and really making short-term plans. Just make short-term plans. And eventually maybe you can start looking a little bit farther down the line and making long-term plans. I am making plans now and relaxing more into my life and enjoying my life every day because I have moved through these things, because I am still working on these pieces in my life. But what I know, friends, and what I want to leave you with is that life is a gift. The present is a gift. Truly being here right now is a gift. And every day that my feet hit the floor, I am grateful to be alive. And that is my wish for you, that you can embrace the present right now, that you can move through these pieces that you feel are a struggle for you, that are traumatic, that bring up memories and fears and feelings in your body, them, and find peace on the other side of that so that you can live your life to the fullest every single day. So let me bring this back around to the beginning of the episode. For me, this is not a journey. It is a deep, inexplicable pain that sometimes resurfaces. It can be unpredictable, and it can come up when I least expect it. And it can hurt deeply. But this is my story, and I'm grateful to be able to tell it. And I'm grateful to each of you for being here and for listening. And I want to offer to you that if you are struggling with how to move forward, whether you're living with the process of cancer right now, or you're trying to reclaim your life, I encourage you to get support, to find someone to talk to, a friend, a relative, a counselor, a social worker, a therapist, a support group. Find what feels good for you, find what feels right for you, but you do not have to live with this inside of yourself and do this alone. And you can always reach out to me. I get what you're going through. This is why I became a cancer coach, is because I understand what you're feeling. And I want to help you to move through that process. You get to live your life right now. You get to create the life that you want to be living right now. So get the support that is going to help you to do that. You don't have to do this alone.